Hi everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Just Good Games. Final Fantasy VII Remake is most definitely the biggest game of the year so far. I've already reviewed it on the channel, so check that out after this video if you want, but I felt compelled to make another video on this game, to make another video which goes into more detail and more spoilery territory of why I love this game so much. So let me just warn you now, spoiler alert. Also, before we get into this, I want you to do one thing, and that is scroll down to the subscribe button, hit that, because I have just developed another materia. Now let's crack on with 10 reasons why I loved the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Before I launch into this, I want to say that I don't think turn-based JRPGs are outdated or bad. Persona 5, Ni no Kuni and Pokemon have all proved that turn-based JRPGs can still be amazing games. With that being said, the combat in Final Fantasy VII Remake just feels like a natural progression and evolution for the series, and it doesn't take you too far from the classic formula. If you were knocking out combos like a Devil May Cry game, I think that would have been too far. But the hybrid of Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15 style combat is most definitely the best combat system Square have made up in years. Not that Kingdom Hearts 3's combat was bad. There's enough in the system to require strategy and party management like turn-based games, but you are more actively taking part in it, which is where the fun is. Switching between characters is fun again, and each of them feel useful. You usually have a well-balanced party with a ranged, close combat and magic/healer in your party when you have all 3 party slots filled. I really like how the weapon system works as well, as you acquire the weapon skill from a weapon after using it a number of times, so you can use it with any of the other weapons. This is great as it means you can just use all the skills and have Cloud use the Buster Blade, which is just the right way to play as Cloud. Aerith is one of the standout characters of this game, and she steals the screen whenever she's on it. I know of her fate in the original, but due to the ending, that's all up in the air now. Speculation. She is just lovely and is pretty much the driving force for most of the plot of the remake. There's just something so likeable about her, and being an ancient means she is also very powerful. I also enjoyed having her in my party and thought that it was a bit better, more balanced when she was in it. She's a great healer/magic caster, as she has lots of MP points. Her attacks can also pack a punch, especially her Ray of Light attack. Unlock that as soon as you can. She also seems to be one of the 2 characters that is aware of what's going on with all the changes in the ending and Destiny, and that plays into many theories about what's going to happen in the next part. Chapter 9 is one of the reasons why I love JRPGs. They just go off on such weird and amazing tangents, and the whole Don Corneo segment of the game is such a great tangent. Trying to get to Don Corneo involves so many great and wonderful moments, from Cloud's amazing dancing skills to battling in the Colosseum tournament, which has one of the weirdest and best bosses in the game in the Hell House. This segment of the game also involves so many wonderful and eccentric characters. The Don himself is such a sleazeball. Madame M and Andrea are just so memorable and play their parts in the story really well. It was really fun to wander through the seedy underbelly of Midgar in a really weird and wonderful detour. I do love a good boss battle. It's why I love the Souls games, and Final Fantasy VII has some outstanding bosses. All are multi-layered and multi-staged. They require you to find their weaknesses and exploit them, as you just can't rush in and mash the square button to defeat them. There's a nice challenge to all the bosses, and I found myself with my back against the wall a couple times, which is what you want from some bosses. You don't want them to be too easy, you want them to challenge you. There's a nice variety as well, from massive mechs to one-on-one human battles to big ass monsters. They are also so cinematic, with mid-fight cutscenes up in the ante and switching up strategies. My personal favourites are Roche, the Airbuster, Reno, Rufus Shinra, and the one-winged angel himself, Sephiroth. And speaking of him, Sephiroth is truly one of the most iconic villains of all time, and for good reason. Firstly, his design is just so cool. The armour, the giant swords, just everything about him screams villain. Knowing a bit about the original and the fact he isn't meant to show up at this point, I was pleasantly surprised by how much he was used, and I personally think it was a good idea, as the surprise of him and the mystery has been removed from the original over time, as he's just so well known now. I know the original designers sort of had a Jaws vibe for him, where you don't really see him but you see his actions throughout. I don't think that would have worked in this modern remake, as everyone just knows who he is now. What I was even more surprised about though was the fact you get to fight him in one of the best but by the skin of your teeth boss fights right at the end. His theme music is legendary. He is also the other person who probably knows about the future and destiny, and is also likely trying to get Cloud and Co to inadvertently change things, so he will not be defeated like he was in the original, but again, that's just speculation. I think doing this has also, added the mystery back to him again, as now we're not sure what he's going to do. We don't know what his plan is yet. It might be the same, to be honest, but we don't know. I like a game which is not afraid to change up things every so often and throw in different mechanics and sections, as when it's done well, it can offer up a nice change of pace and keep things really fresh, especially when it's a long game. Final Fantasy VII Remake does this very well with the mini games, the dance mini games, the squats, the pull-ups and other distractions like that, but the chase sequences stand out for me. The mechanics are spot on. The first is definitely a highlight, which is closed by a very good bike boss fight against Roche. The second is also fantastic and comes at the right moment. It's a nice breather after a lot of story heavy moments which come before, and a nice segue into a string of bosses and a story driven end. Avalanche and the Avalanche crew are amazing, and their plan and goal is actually very topical and relevant at this current moment in time, with their message of saving the planet. This game fleshes them out all nicely, and one minor complaint is I probably would have liked to have seen more of Wedge, Jesse and Biggs, but when you get them, they are great. I also like that the game makes you sort of question their actions sometimes, as you get to see the devastation of what one of their attacks did. And what are their actions do to the normal people of Midgar? The people of Midgar do not view them as heroes. Obviously that's through Shinra propaganda, but it does add a nice layer to the game's story. Barrett especially believes that what he is doing is right, and the people have been brainwashed by Shinra, and they just don't know what they need. Bar some texture troubles, this game looks amazing, and when you look at the original, you still can't believe that this is the same world and the same characters, but it feels so right, and all the locations of Midgar are stunning and full of life. It really does feel like you're in a living world, and that is also reflected in the side missions, which are good but not great, which have you doing tasks for the people of Midgar. It is a bit corridor centric at times, but it still just oozes atmosphere and class. The soundtrack is amazing, and I'm looking forward to exploring beyond Midgar in hopefully a more open world environment in the next couple parts. Cloud is a good protagonist, and he holds the story together well. He's a bit grunty to begin with and even towards the end, but obviously this game is just the start of his journey and he's not fully formed yet, but I enjoyed the way he just works. He is the soldier, he's the hero, he's a great foil for Sephiroth, he works well with Aerith, he has great relationships with all the characters in the game. He really is the glue that holds it together. Obviously his relationship with Tifa is essential to the game, and the way him and Barrett sort of warm up to each other is really good. Also he has like one of the coolest weapons in gaming history in the Buster Blader. Cloud is a gaming icon for a reason, and I can't wait to play as him through the next part of the game. This one's going to be controversial. Only knowing the broad strokes of the original story probably made the changes a bit more okay with me, but from what I hear, it's like most of the changes expanded on the lore and added to the story, and maybe are actually a bit more in line with what Square's original vision for the game was, but they had to change it obviously because of the limits of the tech at the time. The Aerith was never meant to die theory obviously comes to mind. So that's cool with me. I think anytime you can naturally expand on backstories of characters and lore to make a richer experience is always a plus. The meta style of the ending, which I enjoyed, maybe it's the Kingdom Hearts fan in me, makes it seem like a complete story. It's a good end to sort of tie up this part. It's now a complete story that's setting up a sequel as opposed to a part which just suddenly stops. It also once again adds a mystery to the game, and we're all talking about it, which is essentially what Square wanted. They're just messing with us, to be honest, aren't they? And on a final note, we don't know what's going to change in the next centuries, so everything at this current moment is speculation. And what I'm saying now is also speculation. It could all change, but I honestly doubt that, as I know the backlash would be massive and no one would buy the third part of the game if the second part of the game was completely different. I've judged this game as a standalone, as that's all we can do for now, and as a complete game I love it. I think if all the games come out and it doesn't work, then we can slate this ending, as we all know that's the point when it went wrong. But in all seriousness, I just can't wait to play more, and I will probably end up playing the original over the next couple years to sort of quench my thirst for Final Fantasy VII. So there you have it, that was 10 reasons why I love the Final Fantasy VII Remake. All I need you to do now is hit subscribe if you haven't already, comment in the comment section below, I know you will because it's quite controversial, that last topic, like, share, subscribe again, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, and once again you have been watching Just Good Games.